welcome back to En Familia con la Plaza. My name is Miss Liz and I'm the Education Assistant here at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. This month, La Plaza is celebrating Día de los Niños, a celebration that not only honors children, but also literacy. Today, we're going to be celebrating Día de los Niños by creating our very own comic book sequence. Let's get started! Comic books are some of my favorite things to read during Día de los Niños because it is a place where art and literacy meet, my two most favorite things. Did you know that comic books developed from cartoon illustrations and became popular in the United States during the 1930s through the development/creation of superheroes? What are some of your favorite superheroes? One of my most favorite superheroes is Spider-Man. Here I have some comic books that my older brother gave to me that are pretty old. These are from 1992. He gave these to me because this is one of his favorite superheroes, and I think it's kind of why it ended up becoming my superhero as well. Let's go ahead and take a closer look. To better understand comics, I am going to go over the basic elements of a comic book. The first element we're going to talk about is panel. A panel is a page that is surrounded by a border. Each page can have more than one panel. These panels move and tell a story of using action with figures and speech bubbles. As you can see in this page, we have 6 panels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The next element we're going to be talking about is caption. And I'm going to use a different comic book for that. A caption can be a box that separates the rest of the panel and is used to create context for what is happening. Here in this panel, which is a very big panel, we see a small caption on the top left-hand corner. It says Lower Manhattan. In this case, it gives us the location of where our main character is located. The next element we're going to focus on are bubbles, speech bubbles or balloons. And for that, I'm going to use another comic book. A speech bubble or balloon contains the dialogue for the characters inside of the panel. These speech bubbles or balloons have a small tail or arrow that points to the character who is speaking. For example, here we have one big panel and we see different dialogue balloons or bubbles. And we see the little arrows that are pointing to who is saying what within this scene or within this panel. There's another type of panel that we just saw when we were focusing on caption. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back. This is known as a thought cloud or thought bubble. Instead of using an arrow, in this case we see little dots, which lets you know that in this case our main character, who is Spider-Man, is thinking. So these are his thoughts. But here in the lower right hand corner, we notice that there is a speech bubble with a little arrow, which lets you know that somebody said this and is off of the panel or off of the scene. And the last thing I want to focus on is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia refers to the formation of a word from a sound. So in here we have several different examples. We have scrow and pow and whoop, 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 whoop. And over here we have something like wham and walk and bram. All right, now that we've familiarized ourselves with the basic elements of a comic book, we are ready to create our own. For this activity, you're going to need the following materials. A sheet of paper. Today I'm going to use a white sheet of paper. A pencil with an eraser. A ruler or a straight edge. I'm going to be using a paint stick today, which is what I found. And some kind of coloring materials. Today I'm using color pencils and brush tip markers. The first thing we're gonna do to develop our comic book story or our comic book sequence is we're going to think about who or what we want to focus our story on. Today, I'm going to be focusing my story on my dog. And I'm going to title this comic book sequence, The Adventures of Super Puppy. Next, start to think about this character that you're going to center your comic book sequence on. And think of a funny story or a sequence of events that happens with this character. One funny story that happens every morning with my puppy is that I tend to oversleep through my morning alarm. And he jumps into my bed and he wakes me up and I am able to get to work on time every day. So I'm going to go ahead and write out that sequence or those steps of events. So the first thing that's going to happen in my comic book story is I am going to oversleep through my alarm. So I overslept through my alarm. The next thing I said that happens is that my dog jumps into my bed. So my dog hears the alarm. So Super Puppy in this case hears the alarm. The third thing that happens is that Super Puppy jumps into my bed and wakes me up. So Super Puppy jumps into bed to wake me up. All right. And the last thing that I do with Super Puppy is I thank him by cuddling him for waking me up every morning and thus saving the day. So the scene ends with cuddling and thanking Super Puppy. All right. And here I have my title and my four, what will now become my 4 steps or my 4 series of events that will now become my 4 panels of my comic book sequence. All right. Now that we have our written story, we are now going to start developing the panels for these different steps in our story, or scenes in this case. So we said that the adventures of Super Puppy, in my case, begin with me oversleeping through my alarm. Now here you can go ahead and use your ruler or your straight edge to go ahead and create the panels needed to tell your story for today. In my case, it's only 4. So I'm gonna opt out of not using the straight edge today or the ruler, and I'm just gonna freehand it because I like to keep my drawings a little bit looser. It's just my style. All right, I'm gonna tilt my paper a little bit because that's how I'm most comfortable. All right, and here we go. Panel number 1. Panel number 2, panel number 3, and panel number 4. So in the first panel, or in the first scene, I overslept through my alarm. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw myself in my bed every morning, oversleeping through my alarm. Oops. All right, and here is my the basic elements of my first scene, or my first step. All right, and now I'm going to add a couple of the elements that we learned about. One of them is onomatopoeia, and I'm gonna go ahead and draw this like starburst of a cloud or bubble. And I'm going to add ring, because that's how loud my alarm is in the morning, and I still can't hear it. It's very hard for me to wake up. All right, get rid of any lines you don't want or you don't like. And I'm also going to go ahead and add a small caption to the bottom of my first panel, and it's going to say 7 a.m. in Los Angeles. All right. Next, I'm going to go ahead and draw my second scene, or my second event. And this is when Super Puppy, or my dog, goes ahead and hears the alarm. So I'm gonna draw him. And when drawing your superhero or the superhero, the main character of your comic book sequence, you are welcome to use pictures or reference images to further develop your character. So since this is my dog that I'm focusing on today, I wanted to share some of the reference images that I brought today on camera. So here are a couple of pictures of what my dog looks like, and today he's taking the name of Super Puppy. And so he's a small like beige fluffy dog whom I love very much. And so I'm going to use these images and I'm going to place them over here on the side so I'm able to kind of develop what his cartoon character is going to look like. So here I go. He has very fluffy ears. And he has very round eyes. And he's always super excited, and he has long eyelashes. And he always has kind of a fun stare sometimes on his face, because he's always super excited to meet anyone. And he has little lips like this. And when he's happy or super excited, his pink tongue kind of sticks out like this. And as you can see here, he has a little red collar, so I'm gonna add that. But since today he's a superhero, he's also going to get a bit of a cape. All right. Now, the third step in the series of my events is that Super Puppy jumps into my bed to wake me up. And the last scene was that I cuddle and thank Super Puppy for saving the day. But to save us some time, I actually already got started with this comic book sequence. And I'll show you what these last two scenes are looking like. So this is what the last two scenes look like. And like I said, I wake up, there's the ring, I don't hear it, the alarm goes off. I have my caption. And as you can see here, I drew Super Puppy with his little cape. And then in the third scene, he jumps into my bed, crashes into me and wakes me up. And then I thank Super Puppy for waking me up and saving the day. So as you can see, I've added elements throughout my comic book sequence or story. Here I gave Super Puppy a thought bubble that says, "Oh no, she overslept." I added another onomatopoeia to the third scene that says crash when he crashes into me, and a speech bubble to Super Puppy saying "wee" as he jumps into my bed. I've also added a speech bubble to myself saying, "What would I do without you?" to Super Puppy and cuddling and thanking him. And last but not least, I have also added a title, The Adventures of Super Puppy, to the bottom, and I've actually initialed it and signed it because this is my artwork. Now that you have gone ahead and finished your scenes, you can see that I've began to color in my story. Go ahead and now finish up your comic book sequence by coloring it in using your favorite choice of medium. You can use crayons, you can use paints. Like I mentioned, I'll be using markers and color pencils to finish up my comic book sequence. Now that you finish your comic book sequence, I want you to think about what theme you chose and why you decided to focus on that. For example, my comic book sequence focused on my dog. Although he doesn't really have superpowers, I like to think that he does because he means a lot to me. And the second thing I want you to think about is how can you expand on your comic book sequence? For example, what about if your story or your sequence of events is longer than the one that I made? You can go ahead and add additional panels to your story. What happens next? Are there any other adventures that your character is going to go on? Maybe you can even develop your very own comic book novel. All right, this concludes our activity for today. Don't forget to join us the rest of the week as our virtual tours continue and we continue with our celebrations of Día de los Niños. Muchas gracias y hasta luego.